Let's speak now to Jo Phoenix, Professor in Criminology at Reading University. She won an employment tribunal against the Open University after she was sacked because she was accused of transphobia. Jo, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
It turns out yourself and J.K. Rowling were right all along. So, do Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson owe her an apology?
I don't know if they owe her an apology. I don't know if apologies even fit here. And instead of talking about Rowling, what I'd like to do is talk more generally about this, because every single one of us who have been engaged in this fight in one way or another, either as professional academics or as activists or whatever, have been trying to sound the warnings about what the impact of going down the kind of trans ideology, for lack of better words, is. And we've not just been sounding the klaxons about the harm to children and women in prisons and women in refuges. We've also been saying that there is a very strong contingent of people, maybe a small number, who are actively trying to stop us even being able to say this. So when the CAST report came out yesterday, I was watching on Twitter, and there were many people who were going, well, thank goodness somebody's finally come into the room with the evidence that we've been saying is happening all along. And then the mood changed, and the mood changed to, why did we have to do this? And then the mood changed to the absolute extreme sadness that so many of us have felt when the perfectly reasonable things we've been trying to say about the harm that this does to actual people, when you suddenly realize that there is that harm that sits there. Now, you asked about apologies. I think there's like two different elements to this, and I'll talk personally here about the OU. There were 368 people who signed a letter to try and get the research center that I was part of run out of town, basically. The employment tribunal found it was harassment and discrimination and so on and so forth. If any one of those 368 people tried to apologize to me, I know two things about that. The apology is worthless, right? Because, you know, I was run out of town. And all of the heartache, right? So that apology is worthless. The other apology is worthless, or it's worthless on another level, because it doesn't do anything to stop the fact that academic voices in this area and people who have been trying to warn government and others that harm is being done, it doesn't do anything to bring that back. So if there's any apologies that have to be given, it's to the women and the children that have been harmed by this movement. And there's one other thing I want to add. There's another element to this that people forget about. These were human relationships. The people who harassed me and discriminated against me, they were people I'd known for a couple of decades. So there's a level of personal betrayal that goes on with this. And the thing about that personal betrayal, no apology will help, because the people who did these things knew what they were doing. There are some apologies that might help. The bystanders who may have been too afraid to speak up, for instance, those may help. But the rest of it, you know, it's ridiculous. You know, now that we know, particularly the CAST report, about how many children have been harmed by, you know, medical transitioning, the CAST report was so damning. Anyone who supported the transitioning of children in the manner that we were doing it has those harms on their hands. So, yeah, I actually agree with her. You know, the OU offered me an apology. I think it's worse than useless. You know, I don't care about their apologies. I don't care about the apology of the Vice Chancellor. I didn't care about the apology of the Vice Chancellor from Essex University when they were found to have unlawfully treated me, because they are absolutely useless in this area, because so many of us have been trying to have our voice heard moderately for so long.
So, Professor, why do you think it is that with so much underwhelming evidence that puberty blockers and other hormone medicine there was nowhere near enough evidence to suggest that this was going to help. We didn't know the long-term effects of it, but why was it so that a few of the loudest voices on social media were able to influence a whole medical community into silence?
Well, I want to say that's the $1 million question, but we know why. We know why. And it kind of links a little bit to what your previous presenter was talking about. And that was about people just want to be nice. When all of these, gender affirmative care was being brought in, when people like myself who were being shouted down and told that we were transphobes, you've got a whole realm of bystanders around you. And many of those bystanders stand out of the way, and because they just want everyone to be kind. But then, with regards to gender affirmative care, you've got key activist organizations that manage to get into clinical practice in a way to really shut down people being cautious about what they were doing with children. And of course, we know those organizations, don't we? Stonewall, has had such
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
malign. Yeah.
absolutely. Professor Joe Phoenix, thank you so much for your time today.